My name is Kirk Smith. I am an ALK positive patient. I live down in Athens, Georgia. I was diagnosed in December of 2013, so I just passed 11 years fairly recently, 11 years since diagnosis. And I currently serve as the president of the board of directors for the ALK positive organization.
Uh, Ken Culver, I am the Director of Research and Clinical Affairs for ALK Positive. I'm not a patient or caregiver, I'm an employee, and I have been tasked with trying to expedite the development of new drugs for the cure of patients with ALK positive cancer.
Certainly now with the Scientific Advisory Board, we have an even more powerful group of minds that can help guide us that way. And I think even I'm looking at, one of in our strategic plan, our long-term goal, our number one goal was drive research to a cure for ALK positive cancer. And part of that was cultivate and leverage an expert scientific advisory board to help prioritize opportunities and investments for research and clinical trials.
These are people who are top of their game and they don't just do ALK, right? They're working on all kinds of lung cancer. They're experienced thoracic oncologists, and the fact that they're willing to donate their time to be a part of our SAB and really move this forward um, means a lot, says a lot about them as people too.
This announcement to our ALK community is a big deal. And I guarantee when it hits our ALK community publicly, that there's going to be true major excitement. And that's a lot of what we're wanting to know too, is that we are not a passive organization. We are out there trying to make things happen and trying to drive it. And I think that's very important to hear when you're diagnosed with a terminal disease.
Many of the companies have not been including ALK in their trials, especially the immunotherapy trials. And that's based on some earlier studies where IO, talking checkpoint inhibitors in particular, didn't show efficacy for ALK or for EGFR, so oncogenic driven cancers in general. And as a consequence, we're being left out. And if you go through clinicaltrials.gov and look, you'll see ALK EGFR excluded, ALK excluded, ALK EGFR excluded over and over again. And so we, working with our SAB and expertise, we can now start to say, okay, how do we have the scientific data to go there and say, wait a minute, instead of just assuming that ALK patients won't respond to any kind of immunotherapy, here's reasons why it could very well work with this new one you're developing. And so having a partnership where we're bringing them data, they're bringing data in, and together we're then going to the companies and saying, hey, here's a good rationale for why you should test your drug in outpatients. Now we're creating new opportunities for outpatients that would have otherwise never happened. And we know we need multiple shots on goal, because if you look at the pharmaceutical literature, most oncology drugs get into phase one, never make it to the market for all kinds of reasons, right? They don't work, they're too toxic, whatever it might be. And so we are working hard to get the scientifically driven, patient, sensitive trials that allow us to do things and answer these key questions quickly so that we can know now, not 5, 6 years from now.
That I was diagnosed in 2013. Well, this organization didn't exist in 2013. It actually started initially as a Facebook support group page in 2017 by a woman who was an outpatient and didn't know anybody else that had the disease. Certainly, I mean, I didn't know anybody in 2013 that did either. And so they started that. I wasn't familiar with it at the time. And I think, some of that's important to say, that there wasn't an organization like this Because for one, when you got lung cancer, and when you got stage 4 lung cancer, you didn't live long enough to start organizations. Now, when I was initially diagnosed, I didn't know it was ALK positive, just knew it was lung cancer, and then eventually found that it had a genetic mutation. Of course, I didn't know what a genetic mutation was. I didn't know what ALK positive was. There wasn't an organization. Then in 2018, some of the people, there was kind of people that were part of that support group started this organization, seeing the need that if we could help, if the organization could start funding some research on our own, maybe we could advance that. And I still was not a part of that. I didn't even know the organization existed until around 2019 is when I joined as just somebody on the Facebook support group. And since then, I mean, that's I don't know if are part of any kind of nonprofits or you're part of on a board of a nonprofit or a volunteer, but a lot of times that's where nonprofits come from. Somebody has a passion, they see a need, they get involved in something to help. They want to make a difference. But a lot of times, like in my case, when I joined the board, some people had invited me on, but I didn't know how I could possibly help. And certainly I don't have Ken's science background or his career in pharmaceuticals, and neither does anybody else on our board. And so there's some point where no matter how much passion you have, you can only do so much. I mean, you need to have some experience and some knowledge about how to actually make things happen. And we didn't have that. And we knew that a scientific advisory board would be a great thing for us to have. We'd seen aspirational organizations that had that. So we knew that that was something to aspire to, but we didn't know how to go about it. There were a lot of things about what we were doing that we didn't know how to go about doing, even though we had a medical committee. And eventually, 2.5 years ago, we hired Ken, and Ken's completely changed our perspective, our insight, our connections, all because he has this terrific background and career and has brought that knowledge to us and able to, I can't remember the word Ken used just a minute ago, but I use the accelerate the process. And so with that, Ken's also really driven us to have a scientific advisory board and the need for a scientific advisory board. So this is a huge step.
And I'm going to start by taking off on another one of the important leadership roles that Kirk's been playing in the organization. So ALK Positive has a patient summit every year in July. 2 years ago when I joined, it was in Philly. This last year it was in Nashville, and coming up in 2025, it'll be in San Diego with 400 or 500 patients and some caregivers. And so it's quite a remarkable event. And last year, when Kirk kicked it off, the theme was Stronger Together. And I think most of us, when we hear that Stronger Together, we're thinking, yes, patients not feeling isolated, they have others that they can count on, and we can work together and accomplish goals. I see the scientific advisory board being exactly analogous to that. That we have these men and women who are fantastic ALK scientists working in different institutions that allow some degree of collaboration, some degree of competition, and they're working towards the goal to benefit our patient group. So by creating this scientific advisory board, I feel like we're kind of completing the picture of our key constituents of who are really going to drive out lung cancer to a cure. And so, you can use all kinds of analogies. They're part of the family, so why not have them be formally a part of it? You can come up all kinds of different ways to think about it, but Stronger Together is, to me, key. And part of that Stronger Together aspect that I like is that when you have smart people with lots of information and experiences, when you get that diversity of opinion, experience, and view together in one room, you get things you otherwise wouldn't get. And so while we've been working with all these men and women for a long time in different capacities, to have them all together once to feed off of other ideas and criticize or say, I wouldn't do that, is really is invaluable.